Look, it depends on what the space is. You know, the classic good old powder room that we all love to make an impact in is a classic example, I think, of what you're trying to say, where we can be quite creative. It's a confined space, and it doesn't necessarily have to follow the flow of a home. It can just be its own little journey. So that's always fascinating to kind of really identify what the client's personality is and just go a bit crazy and wild. And often because it's a small space, and you know, they'll invest a little bit more money, whether it's the wall furnishings or, you know, whatever it might be, the lighting or even some artwork. So the powder room for me is always a really interesting space to work on, and I do try and make that like the go-to. You know, if you want to know who I am, go to my powder room. I guess, you know, I've over the years done a whole bunch of open plan, you know, apartments where they're small. You know, you walk in, you walk down a little corridor, you've got the kitchen over here, you've got the balcony out down the back. That's not a space I feel like I can go too crazy with design ideas. For me, it's more about often balancing the exterior glare with the interior and making sure the kitchen doesn't become too sterile and all the textiles are heavily down there. So it's more, how can I balance this so it's reading as a really beautiful room everywhere? So, you know, your peripheral vision and your, you know, sensors are being sort of sparked with every vignette you're looking at. So in those sort of spaces, I tend to rely on the whole vignette telling a story as opposed to maybe doing something too crazy. But it could be, for example, cocooning the whole space in a beautiful, dynamic, soft wall covering or colour that gives me that visual harmony. Often the ceilings may not be too high, and we can play with doing something on the ceiling again to kind of cocoon. So in that sort of small open plan living space, I tend to think about the whole space and how I can balance it but still make an impact. And then recently I did this wonderful little townhouse where I just knew that everything was going to be covered on the floor with rugs at the end, and the sofa was sort of, as you walked in, the sofa sort of, you saw the back of it and it defined the living space. And I thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity for me to, you know, create something really warm. The kitchen was tucked around a corner. I didn't want to do a painted cabinet. I really wanted to do a warm timber or wood. Sorry, I know timber is an Australian terminology. There might be a few, but a wooden cabinet. And I thought, I don't want wood on the floor. There's just not enough of it to kind of have that beautiful wood floor feel. So I ended up using a pattern tile, really, really noisy, wonderful, loud pattern tile. But it was fantastic because you only saw a bit of it. You know, you saw it under the dining table. I didn't need a rug. You saw it in the entry. It contrasted so beautifully with the wood of the kitchen. And then in the living space, I went a beautiful blue rug. You know, it was the calm in the storm, and this patterned floor just spoke so beautifully and set the tone for the rest of the space. So, you know, it's about making sure it's all working in harmony. But yeah, small spaces are really intriguing. My own home, we've got really huge double height ceilings, and you know, I can't go too crazy with you know, I mean, all my walls are white, and it's more, again, just sort of the tone of colours that come into play that sort of create the interest. I mean, there's a lot going on, but because it's a bigger, vaster space, I'm almost more limited in some ways to keep that volume of drywall just, you know, doing its thing. I mean, I certainly couldn't wallpaper the whole thing, and, you know, it's up to, you know, the art and the plants. And I mean, I love nothing more than a huge gallery wall of pictures, but, you know, I can't even do that in this space. It's just, you have to have that sort of moment of, you know, breath in the space where it is just, you know, the volume and the light doing its thing. So, you know, it's limiting me in that regard to kind of go a bit crazy, and I love to go crazy in design. So, but my bedroom, for example, you know, I can do the beautiful moody wall colour and, you know, the tapestry on the wall, and, you know, the textile heavy on everything, and it works in a small space. It's like, my sister calls my bedroom the womb. You know, you come in and it's like a big womb.